Next, what are the characteristics features of ornithophyly? If birds are pollinated, how these birds, flowers are modified, they are adapted to produce a nectar and to produce a bright colors to attract the birds for pollinations. So what are the characteristic features of this ornithophyly? How the plants are appears? Generally, the flowers are larger in size. Flowers larger in size. It is a characteristic features. The shape of the flowers, corolla or petals, have to be modified according to their beak of the birds. Either maybe tubular shape of the corolla, or maybe small cup shaped, or maybe urn shaped. Tubular, it's a tubular like such as corolla tube. It's a tubular like such as either maybe cup shaped or maybe urn shaped. Urn shaped, for example, it is urn. According to their shape of the corolla, the beak of the birds also have to be modified. They existed in a co-evolutions. So this is the second part, characteristics features of ornithophyly. Then what's the third? The flowers are highly bright in color to attract the birds for pollinations, to produce bright colors. Either maybe orange color, yellow, orange, yellow, red, blue color, or maybe pink color. So the petals of the flowers are their various colors due to attraction of birds for pollinations. It's a third characteristic features of ornithophyly. Then another one is the flowers are nectarless. Nectarless. There is no produced any pleasant smell. It's not essential. Nectarless, but produce a large amount of. The flowers are scentless. Flowers are scentless. And there is no produced any pleasant smell, but produce a large amount of nectars. Nectars it produced by the gland is called a nectar gland. It is nothing but sweet liquids. The synthesis are secreted in large quantities. These are the another characteristic features of ornithophilous flowers. And what are the visitors? What are the rewards of visitors actually? The birds are visit the flowers to suck the pollen grain as well as its nectar. These are the floral rewards to the visitors. Next, the floral parts are tough. Floral parts, these are tough and leathery, for the long withstands of birds on the floral parts. So that is why the floral parts are become tough and also strong. They gets flexible, leathery in structures. So these are the characteristic features of ornithophyly. Once again I would remember, generally the flowers are larger in size and the shape of the corollas have to be modified according to their beak of the birds. They may be tubular or cup shaped or urn shaped, and the flowers are highly bright in colors. They may be orange color, yellow color, red color, blue color, pink colors, different type of colors to attract the pollinators. And the flowers are scentless. There is no produced any odor. That's a scentless. and they are produce large amount of nectar is synthesized or secreted, and the floral parts may be tough and also called leathery. The second zoophily is Cerapterophily, pollinated by bat. These are called Cerapterophily, and such flower is said to be Cerapterophily flowers. If take for example Gigelia africana. These are the example for plants that are pollinated by bat. These are called Cerapterophily plant. Then another one is Adansonia digidata. These are the example of Cerapterophily flowers. The third one is Malacophily. Malacophily in the sense pollinated by snail. The flower is said to be Malacophilous flowers, pollinated by snail. And certain Aeraceae members, also have been reported in pollinated by snails. Members also have been reported. For example, arum plant, that is also Aeraceae members pollinated by snails. Certain water plant, for example, lemna, it is commonly called duckweed. It is a water plant. They are smaller in size. They are freely floating in the water surface. It is pollinated by water snail. The water snail, they are slightly crawling among the leaves of lemna. Their effect for pollinations. So lemna, it is a duckweed. It is also pollinated by snails. In generally, pollinated by snails, these are called Malacophily. Certain Aeraceae members of plants also have been reported in these categories, and lemna aquatic plants are pollinated by snails. The fourth one is insect pollinations, Entomophily. Pollinated by insect. There are a lot of insects that are involved in the pollinations. They either may be butterflies, flies, beetles, and ant. These are the insects have been reported in Entomophily. Among these, the insect, among the maximum pollinators, insect are the most pollinators, is a chief source of pollinators involved in the flowers for pollinations. They are well suitable for this purpose. Majority of the angiosperms are well adapted for the insect pollinations. So these are the most common type of pollinators, is nothing but the insect pollinations. The next, what are the characteristic features of insect pollinating flowers? Characteristic features of insect pollinating flowers. In generally, the flowers are larger in size. In case of smaller in size, all the flowers that they are aggregated appears like a dense inflorescence. For example, Astraceae family. Example, sunflower. Chilianthus anus, its binomial name. In sunflower, actually, a disc of inflorescence. It's composed of, there are two types of florets. One is a ray florets, another one is a disc florets. These are look like a smaller in size. All these florets, they are aggregated or appears in the top of the disc. So it is pollinated by insect. Next, the flowers are highly bright in color to attract the insect for pollinations. Bright colors. For example, bougainvillea. In bougainvillea, the adjacent floral parts also they become highly bright color to attract insect for pollinations. In bougainvillea, bright actually small leaf-like structures appears on the base of the stalk. These are called bright. The bright are usually to protect the flower in a bud condition. They are green in color to perform photosynthesis. But in bougainvillea, in vernacular name we call Tamil Kagidappu bougainvillea. Bright also become bright in colors to modify to attract the insect for pollinations. These are the secondary characteristics of insect pollinating. The third one is flowers are centered and to produce nectar. It's the third characteristic features. In fourth one is in caves, in some of the flowers they are not responsible for secretion of nectars. Then what will happen? The pollen grains it is also consumed as a food sources or which is used to building of its hives. For example, honeybees. In honeybees, the pollen grains, some species are pollen grains actually it's a succulent and juicy liquids. It is used to building of its hives. For example, honeybees. So what are the rewards of these visitors? Actually pollen grain and nectars. It is also floral rewards to the visitors. It is another characteristic features of entomophilous flowers. The next, the flowers are pollinated by flies or beetles to produce a foul smell. Foul smell, I mean unpleasant smells to attract the visitors. So these are the characteristic features of entomophilous flowers. And once again, then what are the characteristic features of how these flowers are adapted, well adapted to attract the insect? In generally the flowers are larger in size. Next, in case of smaller in size, all the flower reds are there appears, I mean aggregated and appears like a dense mass. The next it's a brightly colors, for especially for example bougainvillea. In bougainvillea, bright also become modified to color to attract the insect. Next, flowers are centered and nectars to produce a large quantity of nectars are synthesized. These are the rewards for the visitors. Another one is honeybees. The honeybees actually to consume the pollen grains as either as a food sources, otherwise which is used to building up its hives. And next, the flowers visited or pollinated by certain flies and also beetles. It produces a foul smell, I mean it is unpleasant smell to attract the pollinators. Next, how pollination takes place in salvia. Actually salvia which belongs to the family Lamiaceae. So it uses a special type of mechanism for pollination. These are called lever mechanism. It is also called turnpike mechanism. So use this special type of mechanism, the pollinations are affected. In Laminaceae flowers actually they are well adapted for bee pollinations. So what are the characteristic features of these salvia flowers? It is a protandrous and it's bilabiate to possess only two stamens, consist of only two stamens. In these two stamens, one is a fertile, another one is a sterile stamens. The sterile stamen it is also called staminode. I mean the stamen they may not be produce a fertile anther. Such sterile stamens is called staminode. Protandrous in the sense actually anthers are matures earlier than that of the gynoecium. These are called dichogamy. Even in the bisexual flowers, both the sex organs present the same flowers, it is a maximum possible for self-pollination. But under this situation, self-pollination it become impossible because both the sex organs are they mature at the different times. In this situation, it is only chances for cross-pollinations. In protanders, nothing but anther mature earlier than that of the gynoeciums. Even the pollen grains are reaches the stigma of the one flower, they could not get germinated because the stigma they are not ready to receive the pollen grains for germinations. These are called protanders. In bilabiate, the corolla or the second wall it is divided into two lip-like structures. Let us understand to take diagram. It's a calyx, this is a corolla, only two stamens. Upper stamen is called fertile, lower stamen is called sterile stamen. But both the stamens are interconnected by a tissue called connective tissue. It is a connective tissue. Upper lobed stamen, it is a fertile. Lower lobed stamen, it is a sterile stamens. The petals actually divide into two leaves. These are called bilabiate. So, with the help of this mechanism, a liver mechanism, in the sense the both stamens are interconnected by a connective tissues. Look like it is a liver mechanism. If the visitors, I mean it's a bees, they are enter into the flowers to suck the nectars by pushing the lower anthers. If they pushing the lower anther, they sit on the lower lip. The lower lip which is act as a platform. See, it's an insect. If they are entered, the end of the insect actually to push the sterile stamen, it make the fertile stamen fall back or push backs. The anthers are actually, it matures earlier. The anthers are reaches the maturity, it bursts opens to release the pollen grains. All the pollen grains they are deposited on the back side of the insect. If the insect they are visit into the another flower, the effect of pollination, I mean the pollen grains are they are rubbed in the stigma of the another flower, pollination takes place. These are the mechanisms, special mechanisms are involved in the salvia that belongs to the family Lamiaceae. Generally it is a protandrous, bilabiate, and only two stamens are present. Upper stamens only fertile and the lower stamens are sterile. Certain other mechanisms also involved in plants, likewise liver mechanism. The another one is for trap mechanisms. It is especially involved in Aristolochiaceae. The plants are adopted special mechanism for trap mechanism. They are involved for the pollinations. And another one is a pitfall mechanisms. It is example for arum plant that belongs to the family Araceae. The third one is translator mechanisms. It is well adopted in Asclepidaceae family. For example, Calotropis. In vernacular name we call it is Erkanjadi, Calotropis. then piston mechanisms. For example, Papilionaceous corolla that belongs to the family. For example, pea plant. Pea means all the pulse varieties are comes under the category of Papilionaceae. Pea and beans. The special type of mechanism involved for pollination, these are called piston mechanisms. What are the advantages and disadvantages are there in the both self-pollination as well as in the cross-pollination? The first take with advantages of self-pollination. The first advantage is actually it is always the self-pollination, it is always certain in bisexual flowers. In bisexual flowers, it is sure about that all the bisexual flowers are self-pollination takes place, no doubt at all. It is advantages of self-pollinations. And next, in self-pollination, they do not depend on the agent for pollinations. No need any external agency not involved in the pollination. They do not depend. Then third, actually, in all the chances of cross-pollination is failure, definitely self-pollination takes place to prevent the plant from extinctions. See, pollination, it is essential for fertilization. As a result of fertilization, the ovary part become developed into fruit and the ovule part become developed into seeds. If the pollinations are failure, there is no secretion, production of seeds. If the seeds are not there and the generations become extinct, there is no new species are originated. So under this situation, only self-pollination is helpful to retain the number of species to prevent the plant from extinctions. Prevent the plant from extinctions. So these are the advantages of self-pollinations. Then what are the disadvantages of self-pollinations? Certain disadvantages also there in the self-pollination. If the self-pollination continues for the generation to generation, definitely it produces a weaker progenies. All the progenies are weaker. All the offsprings are weaker because the pollinations that takes place within the same flowers. The endosperms are very minute endosperm. There is no chances for production of new varieties. And the second, actually, the possibles for the productions of new varieties meager. No chances of productions of new varieties or new species. So the new species productions or new variety formations, its chances are very much less because it is actually the pollinations are from the same plant. But variation, it is essential for evolutions. It is a variation in the very different type of plants. Actually, they are adapted in different type of environmental condition. Variation is essential. Such variations never created through self-pollinations. It is created through only cross-pollination. So these are the disadvantages. Then first one is weaker progenies. All the offsprings are weaker. It is not a healthy plants. And the second one is no chances of production of new varieties and new species. The next are the advantages of cross-pollinations. In cross-pollinations, all the offsprings are healthier. Healthier offsprings are produced through cross-pollinations, and the germinations is a better one. Germination capacity is better. The plants which are produced through cross-pollinations, and new varieties are produced. New varieties are produced through cross-pollinations. And next, the new varieties of new plants, they are adapted in the different type of environmental conditions are well adapted. Plants adapted in different environment, it's a better. So what are the advantages of cross-pollinations? The cross-pollination always bring healthier offsprings to produce healthier offsprings because it is a mixing of two different genome. Then next, germination capacity. I mean the endosperm also larger in size, and the seeds have the increased capacity. I mean it's a better to get germinated. But the seeds are produced through self-pollination. They are failure to get germinated because some of the seeds are that become abortions during their germinations because they are self-pollinated. I mean comes from the same plant. But in this cross-pollination, the seeds are vigorous, highly potentiality. They are well adapted in the different type of environmental conditions. A new varieties are produced. It is possible through cross-pollination. The plants are well adapted in different type of environmental conditions. It's the better. Then even though some disadvantages also there in the cross-pollinations. Disadvantages. Then what are the disadvantages are there in the cross-pollination? Definitely, there always depends on the external agency for pollinations. Depends on external agents for pollinations. That is why this process is uncertain, not sure about it. There depends on the external agency, for example wind, then water, birds, insects. Definitely there depends in the cross pollination, but whereas in self pollination they do not depend upon any agency for pollinations. The next another one is, for this purpose they have to be adapted. A different mechanism are adapted to attract the pollinators. Different adaptations essentials is essential to attract pollinators. So these are the disadvantages of cross pollinations. Then what are the significance of pollinations? Significance. Pollination actually it is a prerequisite for the process of fertilizations. It is a prerequisite for the process of fertilizations. I mean without pollination there is no fertilizations. So what is called fertilization? Fusion of both male and female gametes. It is possible, it is only through the process of pollination. So pollinations also help in the to male and female gametes are bring close together through a process of fertilization. It is another significance of pollination. Pollination it is a primary process or prerequisite process for fertilization. As a result of fertilization, ovary part become developed into fruit, then ovule part become developed into seeds. The next, cross pollination introduced variations. Cross pollination introduce variations. Variation is essential for adaptations. So the variation which help in the different plant to adapted in different type of environmental condition. As a result, speciation takes place. Speciation, I mean the process of formation of new and distinct species in the course of evolutions. There are different type of species are formed through a process of fertilization. So these are the significance of pollinations. The first one is it is a prerequisition process for fertilizations. It is a primary process for fertilization. fertilization, as a result of fertilization, fruit formation and seed formation. The next thing, the pollination, which help to bring the both male and female gamete are close together for the purpose of fertilization. The third one is cross-pollination, introduced variation which help the plant to adapt in the different type of environmental condition, as a result to form speciations. So today we are discussing what are the agents that are involved in the pollinations. There are two types of agents are involved. One is a biotic agent, another one is abiotic agents. The biotic, for example, animals, a lot of animals are involved, birds, insect, bats and bees, flies are involved for pollinations. And abiotic factors, for example, wind and waters. Pollinate by wind is called Anemophilas and pollination by water is called hydrophiles. How in violation area pollination takes place and how the maize pollination takes place, then what are the advantages and disadvantages of pollinations, then what is the significance of pollinations.